Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Biblical Brawlers Podcast, where we teach the truth and unteach the garbage. Well, I'm John Whitaker.
And I'm Derek Drury, and we are the pastors of New Day Christian Fellowship, and that is a church right in the heart of the inner city of Springfield, Ohio. And the Biblical Brawlers Podcast is a tool that we've put together to help the church to learn what God is really saying in His Word. We aim to bring out the true context of the Bible as a whole in order to aid in the dissolving of the great confusion that is going on today in the midst of the body of Christ.
We're not here to fight against people per se, but we are here to fight for the truth and rightly divide the word of God as it says we must do in 2 Timothy 2:15.
And with that said, we're going to wave our doctrinal flags high and march down the streets of America in our theological parade for today's topic. Any guesses?
Well, I'll get with you on that parade.
There we go. There we go. So what are we talking about tonight, man?
What month is it? It is June, and it is all about Gay Pride Month.
Yes.
So we are going to dive into the topic of the Gay Pride Month and the wokeness that it brings, and just really just all the wackiness and just the absurdities that come with it, and just kind of talk about the truth.
That's it. That's always our goal, huh? Mm-hmm. And there's really there's so much more than to cover than just in one podcast.
Yep.
But we're gonna just do it tonight.
Yep. And, I'll give a little history of where it started and kind of how it's morphed and changed and grown into what it is today.
The insanity of it all.
Right?
Yeah. So how did we get to where we are? Why do we have, or how did we get this Pride Month?
Yeah, well, many probably don't know, but it started a long time ago. Actually, the exact date is June 28, 1969. It was in New York City, and New York City police, they raided a well-known LGBTQ establishment known as Stonewall Inn. The police began to arrest the employees. They were actually selling liquor without a license. Then the community outside of the bar started witnessing the police arresting several people, and the crowd began to throw all kinds of bottles and debris at them. And this caused the police barricaded themselves inside of the bar, waiting for backup to come because they were fearful for their lives. So in the end, they had actually over 400 people rioting. The riot, it lasted multiple days, just kept going on. And so this began to be referred to as the Stonewall Uprising.
Stonewall Uprising.
Yep. And this is the spark that kind of started the whole LGBTQ rights movement. Then 1 year later, so exactly 1 year later, they actually had their first march for gay rights. And it was actually called the Christopher Street Liberation Day March, as that was the actual street that it began on. And also just not to mention that this, New York, it's the epicenter of the LGBTQ crowd.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of continued on from that day. They still have that annually. Every month seems to be some type of Pride Month.
Yeah.
And, gay pride parades, and
that's where we're at.
But that's kind of where we started.
Yeah. And it started with that day, and then it went to kind of like a gay celebration week, and then in 1999, our then president, Bill Clinton, declared that June will now be Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. Then Barack Obama came, a few years later, and he would come along and say he would call it LGBT Pride Month. And now Joe Biden has furthered the title and expanded that. So there is no question to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, and queer Pride Month. He calls it that. And so it basically includes pride for just any and every form of sexual misconduct, deviancy, and immorality that one can think up and identify with or identify as. So
you want to tell me about the gay pride parades that you've been to?
Oh man, you haven't lived, John,
right.
until You've gone to several of those.
Mm.
You've never been to one of those, have you?
I have not. I
Yeah.
don't really plan on going to one either. So,
And neither have I, and neither do I.
Right.
You know, but I have seen. You probably have too. You know, plenty of them on TV, on news. You know, whether it be clips or big long portions of them recorded and put on, and. What I've seen across the board that is consistent in all of those is you see enough bare skin and body parts jiggling and booty shaking all about the streets. It makes a strip club look like practice,
Right.
you know. And so these parades have become not simply events to show pride for being gay or even tolerance as it used to be, you know, but rather horrific showdowns of nudity and S&M and leather thongs, buttless chaps, chains, and whips galore. It's just an absolute mess. And now it's a thing where they take their kids to it. Mm-hmm. It's a great jamboree for families and children to go to.
Yeah, I mean it's beyond like maybe in the beginning they were like trying to show unity, but it's beyond that. They're literally shoving it in your face to the point where they're trying to get a reaction out of you. You know?
Right, it's shock and awe. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And you know they back you into this corner where they make you think that you can't respond, and then when you do respond, you're the old time bigot, you know. Yes. So just full of hate. Apparently that's what we are if you speak against any of this.
Right. Well, and so no doubt we understand that's what's going to happen here. Mm-hmm. But think about that. Like just the other day, like this month, this Pride month, there was a huge parade where a bunch of trans people were walking in their S&M leather straps and whipping each other and walking each other on leashes like dogs. I mean, it just sounds like a great party already, you know. And they're waving to all the little kids in the crowd as they go by. Mm-hmm. And at one point, and I saw this, at one point this... I'm sorry, folks, but this otherworldly thing comes dancing up with surgically installed boobs, bouncing all over, and runs up to a little toddler that hands him a dollar bill as his little mommy stands there just laughing so proudly. And this is something we're supposed to support.
Correct. Yeah.
We're supposed to support this. We're supposed to be happy for it and celebrate it and embrace it and be like, you guys are doing a great job. And I'm telling you what, I don't care what group you are from. This type of behavior should never be allowed, much less celebrated in public. And it's nothing less than perversion. It is absolute unadulterated perversion, you know, and we've fallen as a nation so far down the toilet that it's difficult to tell what is the sewer and what is the pasture anymore. You know? Yeah,
I mean, God is He's giving this nation over to itself and its desire for sin. Just like it says in Romans 1:26-28. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to debased mind to do what ought to be done.
To do what ought not to be done. Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, that doesn't sound at all like what's going on today, right?
Yeah, right. The Bible, man, the Bible's so good.
Right, the Bible got lucky on this one.
Man, just roll the dice and it was like, man, shoot.
That actually happened.
Yeah. Man, it's a beautiful thing though, how man, God just laid it all out there. There's so much and this has happened over through history as well. You know, it's like we're just reliving it again. You know, but let's take a look into just a few situations in the American sexual revolution climate, and that is definitely where we're in, and talk about climate change. That's where we're at right now, is a sexual revolution, real climate. There was one, Fox News of all channels put out just recently, and it was just despicable. It was all in support of this. The Fox News did a segment on a 14-year-old named Ryland Witherton. She was born a girl, 14 years old. Okay, she was born a girl, but the parents said that before she could even speak, she started telling them that she was a boy. Before she could even speak, she started telling them this.
She must be a pretty good ventriloquist then.
Yeah. So how did she start telling them this before she could speak? Is because she did not like to wear dresses. She didn't like to wear dresses. That's how they knew that she was telling them that she was a boy. And then this part, and then when she, quote unquote, came out at the age of 5, when she came out at the age of 5, they were completely supportive of her. And so she has been living as a boy ever since then, because this 5-year-old had such perfect knowledge of what her biological system and design, that she was able to override it at 5 years old. Yeah.
I mean, it's just absurd. It's so absurd that there's even liberals that are starting to realize how crazy. I think it was like Jon Stewart that recently said, he was like, I'm glad that my parents didn't give me a peg leg and cut out my eye because I wanted to be a pirate when I was 5 years old.
Yes.
Like that's the same thing. Your brains aren't developed. You're not developed. You don't know what you want when you want to eat ice cream for every meal, but like you can't do that, right? But hey, if we want to cut our genitals off, go right ahead. Yeah. Like we should endorse that for our kids.
Absolutely, and we should start letting them drive too. I think we should start giving them driver's license. But honestly, when it comes to this, is not support. Mm-hmm. It's called support. They think it's support. It's not support. It's abuse. This is abuse, people. This is sexual abuse. It is mental abuse, and it is outright physical abuse. And what you need to understand is that this was not done by the choice of that little girl. This was done by the utter confusion and delusion of these debased parents. And of course, they claimed that they claimed to be Christians even. Yeah. And it's just sick, man. It's just sick.
Yep. So
what's next?
Yeah, we got Disney, the wholesome, family-centered, oriented Disney, where dreams come true, right?
If it didn't, it got to be good.
That's right. So among many of the other things, the whole "don't say gay" debacle that got them in some real hot water, and we did applaud Governor DeSantis for making that.
What he did in answer to that, in response to that, he showed Disney that Disney ain't above the law.
But they really have. They've taken off the family-friendly mask, and they've just gone full bore into the gutter. I mean,
that's their happy place
now. And this didn't just happen overnight. They've been slipping things in slowly over, really the last decade. From they start with the shows, and they gets to the movies, or just like in the certain credits, or but now it's getting into the more mainstream movies. So the new, which I haven't seen the movie obviously, but the trailer and the clips for the new Buzz Lightyear movie, which anybody in my age, like we grew up watching the Toy Story movies, and
and those were good,
right? They were good.
They go and ruin it,
right? So in the Buzz Lightyear movie, this is where it was the first ever animated lesbian couple in a children's movie. In this clip, you see two women sitting on a couch. One of them, of course, is holding their child, and they lean over and give each other a kiss. You have to have your representation, right?
Man. Right? You got to get that in there. You got to, there were actually like China and there were several countries that actually banned this from this movie now from being shown in their countries. And it was that important to Disney to put that in there.
Yeah.
That they left it in there. They're like, nah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get off too much of a tangent, but what I've seen, especially recently, like, so Disney, like I said, we said over the last decade, they've been slowly slipping this stuff in.
Yeah.
The LGBT community, they're tired of waiting. Like,
Yes.
it's to the point where, like, Disney, like, they've tried to walk the line. They've definitely been in support of it,
Yeah.
but they tried to kind of keep it, they'll do baby steps at a time.
Yeah.
But they're tired of waiting to the point where they started protest. Okay, like, they made Disney do something. So the left, LGBT community said, okay, you're not going to straddle. Really, they haven't straddled the line, but you're gonna come to where we are, or we're gonna,
make it known.
yes, and so that's so that's kind of where, which is kind of funny. So now they've kind of ticked off both sides of the of the aisle.
Yeah, and so now you got we're kind of going through like almost like a headlining type thing here as we're going through. And you're so right there, man. This stuff, and that's kind of how Satan is working. Period. Now, like, man, it's like we used to, as Christians, like, we could see him working his way through. Now, man, he's just walking down the street like, "Hey, everybody," and people still either can't see him or they see him and they're like, "Man, we love you, Satan."
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of thing. And now you've got Disney that's like, hey, man, the kids, they just need to see this stuff, because if they don't see this stuff, they might actually grow up and live the way that they were actually designed to live. And we can't have that.
No,
we can't
absolutely
not. And I saw a thing where Chris Evans, man, who voices Buzz in the film, says that all of us critics are just idiots, and we will just die out like the rest of the dinosaurs. So we thank you, Captain America, for that.
Well, which is funny that he says that, because who is the original voice of Buzz Lightyear? Tim Allen, right?
Yeah.
Who is more of a conservative?
Yes,
right.
They knew they didn't want him.
Right, yeah. It's so they're like, well, you're out of here. Like, yeah, you're an old dinosaur.
Yep.
We're like you said, yes, they're literally killing them off. Like, they're like, no, you are not. Even though this is your character, you voiced him for 20 some years. We don't like your stance on this, and so we're gonna push you out.
Yeah. Isn't it funny, though, too, that as he says that we'll die off with the rest of the dinosaurs? Yeah, their movie did pretty horrible as an opening weekend, and they were beat out by a dinosaur movie, Jurassic World Dominion. It's just funny and ironic. Yeah. But good job, Chris Evans. But so on to the next one, and was his headline number 3. This is a huge one too, and if you didn't know, continuing on with Disney, but Disney owns ABC, and I saw this one on TV, and on ABC that Disney owns, there's a little show called Good Morning America, a very small show. Now, everybody knows about Good Morning America. Well, this was actually nearly 4 years ago when this happened. So this was like 4 years ago when this one happened, right? And it is November of 2018. But they ran a segment called Desmond is Amazing. And the segment was on the first child drag queen. It's just despicable, man. They set this whole thing up, and if you can picture here's the stage, and basically, so the audience is kind of split in two. Half the audience over here, half the audience over here, and there's this big catwalk in the middle to like a curtain that's back behind the crowd, and Michael Strahan, who's one of the co-hosts of this Good Morning America, he is all excited, and they begin to play music, and he's introducing this Desmond kid, and as this happens, this odd little person comes strutting out, and down this catwalk in a dress and feather boas and so much makeup that he looks like a ventriloquist dummy. I mean, doesn't even look real. And so he is just trying to look as sexy as he possibly can, while the entire crowd, and I'm watching the crowd, the entire crowd of adults they're just going wild, man. They're just going berserk in happiness. This little boy is 11 years old at the time.
Yeah.
You know, so he's like 15 now, right? And as he gets to the stage, Michael Strahan and his co-host, I can't remember who the lady is, but they invite this little boy up there, and then they invite Desmond's so-called mentors up on stage, and you guessed it, they're men in drag. They're men in drag, and everyone just gushes and giggles and guffaws and glorious praise over this entire scene as if it's just the best thing in the world. And they're celebrating Desmond, and they're celebrating these other men that are dressed up like women, you know. And so this is what I call concentrated, undiluted body of toxic weirdos. And it is satanic in every way. And I'm sorry that doesn't fall under the 11th commandment of thou shalt be nice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's so infuriating. It's so sad that it's bad enough that, you know, this kid has been influenced enough of his confusion of his so-called identity of whether he's a boy or a girl, when he clearly he's a boy. He's not only do they want to represent him, even though he's a boy, they want to represent him as a girl, but they want to represent him as a sexualized girl. Yep. Not just like, let's not just dress up like a girl, do some makeup, but let's do the boas and the lipstick and the
let's not just make it bad. Let's make it really bad.
Exactly. You know, and it just makes you feel. I just can't believe like this is on morning television. Like this isn't like HBO at night or like something like it's like in the middle of the night that's not seen by millions of people. Like they make it seem normal for grown men dressing up like women, dressing up little boys in a sexualized fashion, and we're supposed to applaud that in some gross type of way.
Oh yeah. It's bad enough too when adults want to act like this, but now how they're involving the children is just how despicable the whole thing is getting now, because you are taking control over the innocent now and putting them into a place where nobody belongs. Much less, man, the price that people are going to pay for this in the end is going to be horrific for them. You know?
Absolutely. So what other stories we got?
Well, the other day, Jennifer Lopez introduced her 14-year-old daughter, Emmy Munoz, on stage at her concert with the pronouns they, them. So she brought her daughter out, you know, as trans now, and then famed basketball player, and this was a couple years ago, Dwayne Wade, you know, very famous basketball player. He and his very famous wife, actress Gabrielle Union, have helped their son transition from a boy to a girl at the age of 12. A couple years ago, they told the world that their son will now be known as Zaya.
Yep. I mean, you have Will Smith's kids.
Oh, man.
You know, I mean, it's funny, like just how these celebrities are capitalizing on it through their kids, because that's the woke popular thing to do. That's how you're going to get your attention on Instagram and you know the social medias. And it's just and it's funny because you said Jennifer Lopez that, you know, came out as trans. Like a lot of them, it's not even good enough to come out as trans. Like there's all these, there's pansexual. I mean, I can't even begin. But there are so many definitions of like fluid identity, like all this.
Facebook has 70 different options for gender. 70. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
right? Like how do you even make that up? Like and what's crazy to me is that the people involved in these will even say, yeah, we know it's confusing. Like they know it's utterly confusing. And many people think it's hilarious how confusing it is.
It's just how they work. Like it's the confusion is it's kind of their game plan, right?
Oh,
like at the begin, like if you beat their argument, they change the rules, they change the definitions. Like
Constantly.
I mean, like really, like because like just sex, like the way that term has been changed.
Yeah.
Over, I mean, just over, like you, as soon as you, like if you show them logical, like like biological and biology and science, the stuff that they base their lives on. But if you even if you use those against, okay, well, that's not really what this word means. So they just change the definition on it. So then you're just so confused, like they just try to silence you.
Yeah. I feel like we're in a game of Donkey Kong, John. It's like we're running, they're up there throwing barrels down at us, and then we're jumping like, no, we're debunking those barrels, and then we're climbing up the ladders, and then they're throwing fireballs, and we're like, no, and they just keep on doing it and keep on doing it, know, and at some point you're like, man, it's tiring. But we got to keep going.
Yep.
We got to keep debunking those barrels,
right?
Those barrels of lies, man.
Yep. Man, we talked about it before. Like, if they're throwing barrels and fireballs at us. Like, imagine stuff that's coming out. It's going to be coming out of after our kids in the future.
Man,
Like, they're
breaks my heart.
Right?
Man.
They're going to have whole mountains thrown at them. They're just.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I know that God is the ultimate protector of our children. And the ultimate leader and guide, and He put us here to help. Here earthly, I'm like, man, Lord, if you could just come back before we're too old to help our kids through this situation. That's there's part of me that always thinks, oh Lord, just give us whatever time you want, but could you just make it in these parameters?
Right? Yep.
Can you give it a deadline here?
Yep.
So it just makes me sick for our kids, absolutely sick. But moving on to our next situation is, everybody's heard of the sickeningly sad situation where a man now named Leah Thomas was allowed to compete in women's collegiate swimming. And,
it's just, yeah, I don't know. It almost leaves you speechless, but we should. I don't know how many times we have to say that, but like you would think we'd be speechless, but we have to. We got
to keep talking.
We got to keep talking about it because we just can't roll over and just let people go on and just think this is normal. Yeah. Like in this story was to the point where I know in one of the college swimming meets, he actually tied with the biological woman, but they still gave the trophy to him because the supporters of that race said, I don't even know what their exact reasoning was, but basically it was going to bring more attention to it. So they said, we tied, but we're going to go ahead and give the trophy to him.
And it's crazy because it makes me so mad because he couldn't hang with the boys, right? Ranked way, way down in the hundreds, so he says, hey, I'm a girl now. Yep. And NCAA is like, cool, man. All right. And then he goes out there and he's wiping the floor with these poor young ladies that have worked their rear ends off for all of their lives so far to get to where they are. And then now after all of that, because some of these girls started talking out and speaking out. And when they started, man, they were getting repercussions for that, and so now there's been enough people and enough backlash to that they finally came up just the other day. Ruled that okay, maybe this isn't how it should be completely, So now the ruling is that only male athletes that have fully transitioned before the age of 12 can compete in the women's category from now on, and that's just going to open up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say, it forces that decision. It's not even a decision. I can't. It's not a decision.
Yeah.
But for people that think it's decision, now you have to make that decision before you're the age of 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
they want that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, this is another way. And they will argue against that. That's bull.
Right.
No, that's not what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, yes, it's exactly what you want. We see all this. We're not idiots.
Yeah.
We see what you're doing, you know, and that is exactly what you want. You want, man, let's get them before they're 5. Let's get them before they can even speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just absolutely, oh my goodness, man, there are just no words. We could just keep saying absurd
Right.
and ridiculous and crazy and insane.
And this is like it's another one of them changing the definitions. Like, so years and years ago, like Title IX, which was a good thing in sports, where it created, you know, the same amount of scholarships for men and women. So, but now that they've changed what sex is, and like it's a complete mess. Like, supposedly, like that Title IX is protection for these trans men and trans women, you know, so they should have equal protections. It's like, no, that's not at all what the intention of that was.
And what they're finding, I think, a lot is that they're backing themselves in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they're still swinging their wooden swords out there, as, you know, in last attempts to, you know, and that's why you've got some radical liberals even going, man, this isn't even right. You know, Jon Stewart, like you said, and even Bill Maher, you know, like you never thought that he ever, you know, he's intelligent, but what a fool, you know, but now he's like talking out against his people.
Right.
And he's getting canceled for it.
Exactly.
You know, so I don't know, man, you know, but how about our newest Supreme Court justice, man?
Well, she's something else, right?
Yeah, Ketanji Jackson.
Yeah. She's just another brilliant mind in a basket of tomatoes, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So like she recently just said, well, I can't give you a definition of what a woman is because I'm not a biologist.
It's like, and honestly, that has been hilarious because I mean, she is just a walking meme now.
Yeah.
For saying that, and that is the whole thing. Where now, well, I'm not a biologist, but now everybody, you get into any kind of discussion or argument with anybody or debate, and it's like, well, are you a biologist? Like, man, I don't have to be. The thing is, I'm not an idiot, you know, and I know what a woman is. Yeah. I know what a man is, and I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing.
Which is fun because she says that, but what they've done is, what they've had to do is take the science out of it.
Yes.
Right? Because science
but
is going to say, you know, hundreds of years from now, actually Matt Walsh was saying, I heard Matt Walsh say this, so I don't want to steal his, but what he says, hundreds of years from now, you're going to dig up bones, and the bones are going to tell you whether they were man or woman. That's going to tell you. It's not going to tell you what was in their mind, like what they
thought they were.
Bones and science is going to tell you whether we were men or women. Biology will tell you whether we were men and women, not this absurdity that we're living in today.
Right. And these are the same people with COVID saying, follow the science. We followed the science. Man, where's that science now?
Right.
Where is it at now? So, well, we are just in good shape. Good shape here.
Well, at least we have Joe Biden, right?
Man, you got to find the silver lining where you can.
Right.
And he's silver lined. And so what did he just do? It was something somewhat important, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Drink of water here.
Right. There's Joe Biden. That's a whole nother topic for it. But yeah, he did just issue an executive order that directs the Department of Health and Human Service to expand the access to gender affirming care.
Sweet.
Which is, I mean, it makes your skin crawl.
It does. That's another one we could say 10 times.
Yeah.
It makes my skin crawl.
Yep.
Gender affirming care. You know, so what's that going to do? It's going to strengthen efforts to ban conversion therapy. And what is conversion therapy? I mean, that's anything now. Like a pastor sitting down with a person that is struggling with gay and lesbian feelings and need help. And the pastor is trying to help this person, but now that's called conversion therapy.
I think your wife's
My
calling.
wife
Like,
is calling me. And I'm
Pam, we're in the middle of a podcast, so
I know what she's going to ask me to. I'm going to have to text her while I'm talking here. Oh shoot, that'd probably be awkward if I answered the phone. But I'm texting you, Pam.
Yeah.
I'm texting you, baby. Anyways, but now it's gonna put us into an illegal situation, which they've been trying to do for years. Canada's doing a good job at that with Trudeau, but it's going to give more access to transgender sex changes for Americans, including for children. So it's good to know that our leaders are doing a good job and focusing.
And it's crazy how they've been. They I guess I don't want to say smart, but how they have been laying the groundwork of this for a while, like even letting children make these decisions. Just like, I mean, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and a year ago took her to the doctor, and the doctor is asking questions, and they looked at my wife and said, looked at my daughter and said, "Do you feel comfortable with your mom being in here?" We're like, yes, she does. She's 11.
Yeah.
We are her protector, her provider.
I don't
we
care
will
what
be
she says anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were gonna take, which, I mean, my daughter was like, yeah. That's my, right.
Absolutely.
But it's just
you've trained your kids,
right?
Man, our kids get a front seat at what's going on. And man, there is teachable moment. They're living teachable moments now. I mean, day in and day out. Everything. You just walk down the street, drive down the street, turn on the TV, get on the internet, get on the phone. You're like, okay, gather around, kids. Here's another situation here. And so, but what this is going to do, man, it's going to give the government power to force parents out of the way when their little 5-year-old girl says, "I want to be a boy."
Right.
And so
or when they want to be a pirate.
Yeah, that should come next too. But there's going to then be investigations on the effects of children whose parents do not agree to give their children sex changes. So now the government they want the power. They've wanted the power over our children for, many years.
It'll be considered abuse.
Yes, exactly. And they want the power to take your child away and carve them up into what looks like the opposite sex. So it's just sick and twisted times, man. It's sick and twisted times. We're living in satanic times in this country. Yeah, I actually saw her it was on that what is a woman thing. The guy's in Canada. The guy that his 14-year-old daughter wanted to take hormone blockers, and mom was all for it and dad was not for it, and now he's sitting in jail, or he was out on bail but can't leave where he's at or whatever, and his daughter is now on those pills because the government will always side with the parent, and that's happening in our country here too. So we got one more.
Yeah, one more crazy one.
Yeah.
And who is she?
Oh man, Nancy Pelosi. There is sadly a very popular drag queen show that known by a very popular, probably the most famous drag queen in all the world. That's RuPaul. Most people know RuPaul and know who RuPaul is, but Nancy Pelosi went on this show a while back, and she says this. She says, "It is my honor to say to all of you how proud we all are of you. Thank you for the joy and beauty you bring to the world. Your freedom of expression of yourselves in drag is what America is all about. I say that all the time to my friends in drag." And so meanwhile, I was watching this, and meanwhile, RuPaul and all the other biological men are all there looking not at all like women, but like extremely odd and even scary looking creatures. And that's what they look like. And they're just having a ball and laughing and gawking at the wonderful words that our Speaker of the House is saying. And I'm sorry, man, it's just the plain truth. These people look like weird, out of control, otherworldly creatures. That is what they have made themselves to look like. Man, that's not nice, Derek. You know, they have done this to themselves, and it ought to be so offensive to every real woman out there because this is what they actually think a woman is. You know, furthermore, it's this type of freedom of expression that Nancy Pelosi says is what America is all about.
Yep. And again, of changing the definition. That's not. I mean, that's not what America is all about.
No.
You know, it's
No.
You know, and sadly, this isn't even the most crazy thing that Nancy Pelosi has said either. So.
Oh no! Yeah, I know. Isn't it crazy? This is mild.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. You know what? It makes my skin crawl. And so what if we Christians go? Well, hey, what about our freedom of expression? You know,
no. Like I mean, every other religion is fine, but not you. You're a bunch of bigoted, homophobic, racist Neanderthals.
That's right, man. We are just dinosaurs and Neanderthals. We're old school like that. You know. Well, look at 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 8 through 11. I'll read that real quick. Now, we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully, understanding this, that the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality. Hey, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine, in accordance with the gospel of the glory of the blessed God, with which I have been entrusted. Now, it's interesting because anytime, first of all, that we say, you can't be, you know, even people say, you know, when you say, well, you wouldn't accept this kind of behavior from somebody, you wouldn't accept murder, you wouldn't accept thievery, you wouldn't accept, and they're like, oh, you're equating us homosexuals and lesbians to murderers. Well, God does. God puts all this into categories together. You know, it's sin. You know, and different things have different ramifications, and some of those ramifications are longer lasting than others. You know, but we have a law that is set out by God, and we see very plainly that this world, who the law is set up for, could not care less about God's law. So they just ping and pong all over the place from this belief and that, and they stick their crooked fingers in the air to see which way the cultural winds are blowing today, and then they go out there and they say, okay, that sounds awesome to me.
Right?
Yeah. And in the end, everyone wins. Or wait, no one.
Yeah.
None of them wins.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. So where are we heading, man?
Yeah. So as we kind of start to wrap it up here, and I guess we should start to pull this parade into ending the parade here soon. But
are we hitting the town square here
right
soon? Man.
But I mean, God has purposely given us first, God has ordained two genders.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Male and female.
Yeah.
Like there's not, I don't care what Facebook says or Meta or whatever it's called. There's not 70 of them. And and yes, we know there are like 0.0 whatever % chance of some biological type of issues, but that's not what we're talking about here. Right. Where there's male and female. That's how God made things. That's how God intended it.
Yeah.
And it's a gift, and God has purposely given us the gift of marriage between one man and one woman.
Yep. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And he gives it to us. He gives us to each other to be completely monogamous so that we would become one with only that one person of the opposite sex. And people can dance around it all they want. But all they're doing is lying to themselves. You know, it is about the opposite sex. What does 1 Corinthians 7 say? 7:1 and 2.
Now, concerning the matters about what you wrote, it is good for a man to have sexual relations with a woman, but because of the temptation, not to. Yeah.
It's good for a man not to have.
Right. I'm glad you pay attention to what I was making sure.
I have to.
Right. But because of the temptation of sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband.
Yeah. Yeah. What he said.
Right. Mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Paul is saying here, what's he saying? He's saying, hey, if you're able to put off all these worldly things and focus on God, that's good and that's better. In God's infinite grace, if he has given you the gift to be single, then do that, because it's better to, then you're not torn between the work of the Lord and the needs of a family. But since that just isn't usually the case with people, God in his infinite grace has given us the gift to marry a person of the opposite sex and to enjoy each other as long as we both shall live. Then Mark goes on. Can you read Mark? Are you able to do that, man? Mark chapter 10, 69.
I mean, we'll give it a shot.
I'll help you sound out your words.
Right. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. That wherever God has joined, what therefore God has joined together, let not man separate.
That's it.
I struggled through it, but we got there.
Hey, we got there, man. Marriage is a good and beautiful thing that was designed by God, and it is good and beautiful when it is lived in its proper context, and it's a barrier of safety for people to not go out there and sleep around with everyone. God, that's nasty, right? When the whole world is like, man, I need to sleep around, let's do this, and people bragging about the one night stands and all this stuff. Like, that is not the design. That is not the proper context. And marriage is a barrier of safety from that mindset, from that sexual immorality, and God, who has always been pure perfection, he has designed his own creation in such a beautiful way. Mm-hmm. And what is his design?
Yeah. So that man and woman would come together and make one flesh.
One flesh.
Yeah. And not 70 different ones.
Yeah.
Not like we are made to complement each other. We are made to be formed into one. Two men don't make one. Two women don't make one. Mm. One man, one woman make one.
And you don't have to be a biologist to see that we literally fit together.
Exactly.
Like a puzzle.
Right.
Can I say that on here? Yeah. But we do, And so in that one flesh, we glorify the Lord by being a living reflection of the church's relationship to Christ as his bride. That is wonderful. It's like God's design for man is so very good, but man is so very good at being so very bad.
Absolutely.
So you have any last thoughts there, John?
I think just to remind and just bring it we bring these truths in love.
Yeah.
We say things that are true, that we understand offend people, that people don't like to hear, but we are called to speak the truth in love. Love is not catering to what you feel. Love is not bending over to whatever cultural norms come up today. Love is speaking the truth as written in his word.
That's absolutely right, man. And when we do that, we glorify God. And my last thought would be this too, that we are to be vessels that glorify our Father in heaven. And we cannot do that if we refuse to do it within his design. When we embrace God's design, we embrace the only truth, and we honor the very God that created all things. So with that said,
any fool can be a worldly brawler,
but it takes a wise man to be a biblical brawler. Remember that, folks. God bless you. We love you. Hope to see you later.
Great ending.
Yeah.
Really brought it home there.
Another mic drop.
Right.
Made
Love
my
you guys.
skin crawl.